This is the review show on the official, unofficial podcast of the Melbourne Demons, the DeeBrief. I'm your host, Adrian Horton, and joining me, the great man, hopefully more appearances this year on the podcast, Lloyd Tofflon. Welcome.
Good to be back, mate.
Mate, good to have you back. And how's the grass going? Is it growing at home? I know you had a big project going on with your grass, and it was a real cause of frustration for you, and maybe one of the reasons why we haven't had you around on the show, because you've invested most of your time into that bloody grass.
If that were the case, it would be lush and not dead and in a despicable state. No, it's not doing too well. I like a lot of things, it started off strong and fell away very quickly. So it's yeah.
Do you know what's funny about that?
It's a project that started that didn't finish.
That reminds me of Melbourne's season last year when we were 6-2. I walked out of the ground after that Geelong win. I thought we could flag this year, and then we absolutely plummeted. We shat the bed for the rest of the season. So it's eerily similar to that, I reckon, Toff. But mate, we plough on and we talk about our beloved football club. A 3-point loss to GWS in the last 3 games that we have played against them. We have lost by 3 points, 2 points, and 2 points. It is so frustrating that they've got this tiny little edge over us, yet we are talking about one of the legitimate flag contenders this season. There's absolutely no doubt about that. They smashed the Pies the week before. They just get over the line against us. You walk out of the ground yesterday, and if you are one of those people listening, you're despondent. You're thinking, what if with that last play, we left the corridor too open, in my opinion, and we'll dissect that in a bit of detail. But, God, I was proud of the effort. All you ever ask as a supporter is to give maximum effort over 4 quarters. It's something that you've spoken about at will on this podcast for a long, long time. Can Melbourne put in 4-quarter performances? We almost did that, but we just fell away in the last a little bit. Probably trying to defend the game rather than win the game. And in the end, they're a classy outfit, GWS. You've got to tip your hat to them. But, geez, it felt like one that got away tough.
Yeah, it's the same feeling that I had when they rolled us last year in Alice Springs. You're sort of sitting there going, we definitely should have won that game. But it also felt like during the game, which is the inconsequential stuff, but where there'd be an errant handball just over the shoulder to kind of hit and hope it would just fortuitously land in one of their players' laps. Or if, for whatever reason, we just happened to miss that hit up, you think of the key, I guess you could call them key moments, but like the Petty turnover, I think it was in the first quarter where he went inboard, they went down, kicked a goal. There was lots of those little moments, and when a game's played in those conditions, that's what it's usually going to turn on. And I felt like we didn't have as many, and we got rolled by 2 points. But like you said, I think effort, when we were chatting before the game, when it's miserable and shit, and it's round 1, we could have easily gone to water, no pun intended. And we didn't, and I felt like, the most pleasing thing was it was across the board. I felt like our debutants stood up. The older heads, T-Mac, like we were saying off air, was terrific. And you look at Lever's performance as well, which I feel like it doesn't go unheralded. We love Lever, but he was just so solid with T-Mac down back when I felt like they probably had better disposal coming inside 50. The way they were bringing it in was a bit more potent than us, and so we'll probably get into that separately, because I still think that our forward 50 entry was better, but it still leaves a lot begging. So overall happy, but I'm never content.
No, never content. I just hate losing. I hate losing. And to have the game in our grasp with only a few minutes left and to see it stolen away from us was a really bitter pill to swallow. But in the wash-up, wake up this morning off the back of a League Cup final loss to Newcastle. I went to the pub last night, Toff, to watch that at 3:30 in the morning. Slept in the studio for about 4 hours in Collingwood and then walked down to the Imperial, had to watch that. So I've had a pretty shitty 24 hours, Toff, and I was hoping one of my football clubs was going to get the chocolates. It's certainly not the case. But, mate, I think...
It's a shit weekend overall for sport. Like,
yeah.
you know, there was no... yeah, Melbourne United got up, so you take that. But, yeah.
Well, Scotty won't be happy with that.
Scotty... he's a
Phoenix
I'd
man.
rather South... Yeah, I'd rather Phoenix in there, but, it's a Melbourne team.
That's right.
That's a win.
So, I think the thing is, it would be very easy to get hypercritical of the fact that we've lost another close one against a really good team. We don't want these honourable losses. I don't think this club believes in that notion. Like, why should we, given the fact that we've got so many stars on our list, like Gawn and Petracca and Oliver and Stephen May, who missed yesterday, Jake Lever, Ed Langdon's a very good player, Jack Viney, like we could reel them off. There's more in there. Caleb Windsor's going to be a star. We'll talk about Xavier Lindsay shortly. He was amazing. But the point is, we don't do honourable losses. Like, we're not in that phase for me. I think we're trying to pry open the next wave of players and the group that ultimately will make us a contender again. We have no idea if we're a contender yet. It's only round one. It would be easy to sit there and go, oh, we ran the flag favourites really close. Well...
yeah, but what do you reckon?
Well, I just don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. The proof will be in the pudding, but the reality is,
if you and I could come back to this moment in 20 whatever odd weeks, like, what does your gut say at an impossible point to make a definitive decision about where you think we're at?
That is a crazy question. It's a crazy question. I need a bigger sample size, but if we're going to go down that path, I think we've got a few players in our team that are like spare part players is probably the way I'll put it. Like Jack Henderson, love him, junkyard dog. Howes is another one. He's still too raw. He doesn't have the tools. Matt Jefferson, he's raw.
He'll never have the tools, Adrian Horton. I'm going to put it on there.
No, don't get too harsh.
Like Oscar. No, 100%. Be harsh. This is what we're here for. Like, I say this from my armchair, but Howes...
yeah,
he's Omak, he's Wagner. This guy cannot continue to take up games from other kids on our list. Like, it's not okay. He's the most basic footballer. I think to call him a footballer would be a compliment. He's an athlete that plays football. Like, he's no good.
Okay, so you've put him on the pile. So the point here is you got to look at bottom six of all the really good teams. And I think bottom six for us in 2021 was a lot better than what bottom six is at the moment for this Melbourne team. We've still got some stars, as we mentioned, but I just think it's too disproportionate from top tier through to the other contributors who are your 18 to 23rd man. And I think for that reason, Toff, to answer your question in a very long-winded way, because that's what I like to do, I don't think we're there yet. I think it's going to take us another couple of years to properly contend. However, off the basis of yesterday being the smallest sample size of all time, I can see us definitely contesting for a finals position come the end of the year. That's probably where I'm at. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Yesterday was a bit of an eye-opener. Like, I've shut out football after feeling pretty despondent and kind of at a point where, yeah, I was lost at the end of last year as a supporter after the year that we had, after being stupidly optimistic, I think. But yeah, seeing how young we were and inexperienced was weird because I didn't necessarily have that view of where our list was, but seeing them run out and when they were saying during the telecast that T-Max, our most experienced player from games played at 233 or something, which is mind-boggling because I thought Gorm would have played more than that as well. But that is a pretty strong example of where we're currently at. So, yeah, to your point, I think if we could see consistency across our top players and for them to stay healthy, we'll be competitive and we'll be in a position potentially to play finals. But after my early crow of saying I think we'll finish fourth, I think, it's probably a touch optimistic. But yeah, we've got a long way to go. But in saying that, it's more exciting to think that we have this potential nucleus of young players that can learn off our Petraccas and Olivers, which is a far sight different than what we used to be when we'd have high draft picks come to the club and they couldn't learn, they couldn't develop standards, they wouldn't understand what it took to be competitive at the highest level and also to win and to be winners. And the fact that we've got that there, and guys like Rivers who are still coming into their own, there's an enormous amount to improve. So there's nothing to say that we can't do it. I just think that where we're currently at would probably be a 7th or 8th based on experience. That's kind of my feeling.
However, I take you back to what you said just before. You have us in 4th with your season predictions, or you think we can potentially get around that mark. If we win that yesterday, Toff, if Aiden Johnson becomes the hero at the end and he bins that goal, are you saying a different thing? Probably.
No, because you have to err on. I don't. Despite being in the lead for the majority of the match, I never felt comfortable, and I always felt like they kind of had, or they were playing. They were playing
within themselves.
Not within themselves, but they probably weren't executing at like key points in the game. But they seemed to be in more control. So, no, I'd still be reluctant to say that would be, but I'd definitely be way more pumped and probably sitting here saying we'd finish 4th. Yeah, let's be real.
Yeah, exactly. we'd be talking flag for sure.
Yeah.
It had all the hallmarks. I want to take you back to the final few minutes because there's a lot to dissect from that, and that was probably the biggest thing that was doing the round on the socials. I was doing therapy calls after we did the post-match debrief, which is a new concept that we rolled out on the YouTube channel. I promised I was going to do more on YouTube. We are doing a lot more on YouTube. So if you want to subscribe and you love YouTube, get over there, please subscribe, enjoy the content. We've got Jeff White, who's done some ruck analysis for us from the game as well. We've just thrown up that video and he's amazing. His insights are just incredible. So enjoy that. But let's go back through it. I know this is harrowing for some people, but let's get real. It's round 1. It's not the semi-final of 2023. That is the most harrowing thing I've ever experienced at a football ground. Fuck, I hate Carlton. So the last 3 minutes, I love the way that we're hanging on. We're grinding. There's some big tackles on the MCC wing. It just looked like we were going to fight it out, Toff, and just grind and get ourselves over the line. Now, the thing that really dawned on me, I actually think Aiden Johnson taking that grab, and yes, it's an opportunity to seal the game. He doesn't. I almost think that was the worst thing that could have happened to us. It gave the ball back to GWS from a kick out. And kick outs are insane now, Toff. They can run fucking 30, 40 metres before they kick it. Like, it's crazy. It opens up the whole entire field. Now, I'm not trying to defend Melbourne from a defensive point of view because our setup was shithouse. The fact that they were able to blindly handball back into the corridor, I think it was Darcy Jones, into Finn Callahan. There's a great contest with him and Jack Henderson. Henderson, unfortunately, doesn't get there in enough time. The Melbourne players squeeze up with their press, and unfortunately, Lockie Keefe is out the back. Just leaving the corridor that open is absolutely wild to me and so stupid. Now, Lockie Whitfield's kick, admittedly, was a shocker. It was a grubber. However, just positionally, we shouldn't have been set up like that. So, in a really, really weird way, giving the ball back to them from a behind was the single worst thing that could have happened to us. I think there's a conceivable world where if Aiden Johnson doesn't take that mark, I know this sounds a little bit silly, and let's say there's a stoppage, and then Melbourne have the ability to pen it in that corner of the ground, which they were doing really well, to be fair. They were penning it in that high half-forward wing position for what felt like an eternity. So that was the most frustrating thing, the setup, the way they were able to slice through us at that stage of the game. And it certainly hurt us. But then the thing that I was baffled about was we go back to the centre. There's still time on the clock. There's 50-odd seconds. And where was Christian Petracca? Why was Christian Petracca not in the middle of the ground at the centre bounce? It was wild. We were looking at the setup from our vantage point at M48 on the wing, and I was perplexed because I was like, all right, this is when you put your Rolls-Royce mids in there. Savani's in there and Oliver's in there off the top of my head. but no track. And Ed Langdon goes in there, and I know they're looking at Ed Langdon as a potential midfield option, but that was only his first or second centre bounce that he attended for the whole entire game. And he's in there at the most crucial of centre bounces. And I just don't understand, like, what's going through the coaching staff's mind to not put in arguably the best player on the field on the day in Christian Petracca. Why is he not in the middle at that play? Explain it to me, Toff. Why?
I can't. I had the exact same question at the time that the bounce went up. I did a quick scan. I went, where's Track? Why is he not in the middle? And then let out a few expletives in frustration because we obviously lost. But yeah, to your point, even the notion of putting Ed Langdon in, who played all right, would say had a reasonable game, but he lost the most one-on-ones, I think, out of any Melbourne player on the ground, and that says a lot when you had players like Fritter who were effectively witches' hats for large parts of the game. But yeah, to put him in with your Finn Callahans, your Toby Green, your Tom Green, and you're thinking that is one of the biggest mares you could possibly make at what is the most important centre bounce for the entire game. Probably the most important play, realistically, if you want to have a chance at winning. Albeit, yeah, okay, margins are small, but it was just, yeah, perplexing, to say the least. I don't know. You summed it up perfectly. It was a really strange one, and maybe there was a rationale outside of our logic that they could plausibly put to us to maybe explain away why he wasn't there, but I think to any football fan that has half a brain, I don't think that there would be a reasonable justification. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. I couldn't believe it myself. It was silly. It was stupid. And I don't think I look at it and say that cost us. I just go back to the unfortunate situation from the kick out and positionally how we set up was the real reason why we didn't get the chocolates in that sense. But let's talk about some players that I think were superb on the day, and I think we have to start with Xavier Lindsay. Xavier Lindsay is an absolute gem. Like, we've just found another one, Toff. I got so excited by Caleb Windsor last year, and he was definitely a shining light in what was a pretty dark season, finishing in 14th spot. But you know when you know, and you just watch a player in the first 5-10 minutes of their career, and you go, oh, wow, that's a footballer. And his poise, his decision-making, he's tough as well. He loves a tackle. He had 6 of them yesterday. I just tip my hat to Jason Taylor and Tim Lamb again and go, God, you guys hardly ever miss. Like, hardly ever miss. There were a lot of other players that were in the mix around that pick 11, and Melbourne were bullish about taking him, and you get all that behind-the-scenes material that the club put out post-draft about why they wanted Xavier Lindsay, and you get it. You understand why now. And we've been crying out for someone that's a great decision-maker. He's got a little bit of Gus Brayshaw about him as well. He's courageous, he's tough, he goes back with the flight of the ball. And I'm really pleased that we've got a player like this because we need more polish. So we've got Windsor in last year. We've got Xavier Lindsay in this year. We're hoping Harvey Langford's as polished as Xavier Lindsay is. We'll see in the coming weeks. But that was as good a debut as I've seen in a long, long time. Like, I'm probably talking Clayton Oliver against GWS as his debut. I'm putting it right up there as one of the best I've seen in the past 10 years for this football club. That's how good I thought he was.
Yeah, like he did a bit of everything without doing it all, and that doesn't make sense saying it out loud, but I think there wasn't like an element of his game that necessarily stood out for me where I was like, wow, that's incredible, but there wasn't also any part of his game where I thought, oh, that's something for him to work on. Like, he's the definite article as an 18-year-old kid. Like, to have 4 or 5 frees 4, which shows you, 1, that he's first to the footy, 2, that he knows how to earn a free kick. Whatever it was for inside 50s, 4 or 5 inside 50s, couple score involvements, above 80% for disposal efficiency, 6 contested possessions, 16 uncontested possessions. Like, for a 18-year-old kid, mental, against arguably the best midfield in the competition. you can point to Lockie Keith being a dodo and not a great ruck, but irrespective of that, they've got, probably the biggest midfield in terms of physicality as well, and he held his own. It helps that Clary and Track were both playing and waxing like I haven't seen them play together for a good 2-3 years, which also helps. But yeah, he was spectacular, and the Langford piece, I think you give him a bit of a pass because it's pretty hard to come into a game played at that intensity, which I haven't seen Melbourne produce for such a long time. But yeah, Lindsay was just special. So let's see if he can consistently do it, because if so, I mean, it's another string to our bow to have the opportunity to run Rivers, Lindsay, Sparrow. I mean, Sparrow now really, despite being he needs to be as special as half forward flank, because I can't see the value in having him in the midfield when you can develop guys like Lindsay, potentially Langford, and also shifting Windsor back to half back was, I don't know if it was Goodwin, and I never give the man credit, but if it was his decision, that paid off in droves, and I just thought it gave us a punch that we've lacked off that line for such a long time. Kind of deviated from talking about Lindsay there, but you get the point. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, it was amazing. And perfect segue, though, talking about Tommy Sparrow. Another one who I think a lot of people have been quite critical of him, particularly the last couple of years, because there's that pressure on Tom to become maybe the new Jack Viney. I mean, there's only one Jack Viney. No one attacks the pill like he does, but he does have similar tools to Jack. And yesterday was a really good performance for me, to have 21, to kick a goal, to be involved, to have an impact on the game. If he can bring that most weeks, then suddenly we do have a consistent footballer, and that'll mean that he's taken a big step forward. Because for me, Tommy can just kind of float through games, and then you get a little burst of activity from him, and you go, oh, great, there he is. And then he just becomes a little bit more anonymous again. And in the wash-up, you look at...
Yeah, but hang on.
He's frustrating.
He gets... But also, like, Melbourne's frustrating, and our forward line has been perpetually dysfunctional. And when you're playing half forward, where you get... It doesn't matter at what level, you're going to get lost in no man's land quite a bit. He's not the person that gets that hit up. And I thought yesterday was a really good exponent of how good of an overhead mark he is, which we've all seen in pockets for periods of time.
Good point.
But he's like... He has a great peg on him. He can kick from outside 50. He's very versatile. He's physical. I think he has a lot of tools that Viney doesn't have. Viney has the ability to find the ball better, but he also plays far more time on ball. I think, yeah, Sparrow could be, not I won't say a poor man's Melksham, but I'd love to see him used more effectively in our forward line. I think the way that we showed in pockets yesterday of using the ball inside 50, if we start to use him effectively and he bobs up and gives us 2 goals a game, our forward line starts to look a lot more potent in what was a terrible day for forwards.
I agree with all that. All I'm saying is I just want to see that more consistently. I think the time the time for Tom Sparrow...
How old is he?
Oh, Tommy would be 23, 24. Yeah, I just think it's time, Toff. Like, we go around in circles talking about the ceiling of Tom Sparrow, and I think yesterday was an example of, if that's your baseline, Tommy, great. If you can try to produce that 3 of 4 weeks moving forward, if you're doing that 3 times a month this year, we've got a real player on our hands. I mean, we know we've got a player on our hands. We just need to see that on a more regular basis. And that's as simple as it gets for me. But, like, let's just tip our hat to him now, and then let's see what happens in the coming weeks with Tommy Sparrow. The other one as well, Toff, and Scotty put these 3 blokes on his watch list, and one was Tom Sparrow, so big tick for him. Another player on Scotty's watch list was Jake Bowie, and I couldn't agree more with that. The only mitigation with Jake Bowie is, of course, last year he gets the collarbone injury in that opening round game against Sydney. I think that derails him.
What's watch list? What's the watch list? How are we defining that in terms of, like, exclamation mark? What does Scott mean? What does that mean?
Scotty's watch list is players that are on his radar. And from a more so a negative point of view, like players that he wants to see take the next step. And the three of them
Scotty,
No, it's good.
what are you talking about?
No, it's good. Tommy Sparrow's on there. Jake Bowie's on there. And the other one is Bailey
Why?
Fritsch.
Well, hang on. Bowie was injured for last year because he gutsily put his body on the line, and then prior to that was a premiership player and one of the most important players. And he's like the third or fourth year. Talking about
Scotty's harsh, mate, and I that's why I'm saying there's some mitigation with Jake Bowie, and I think we saw yesterday a player that's had a clean run at it. He's had a pre-season. He was winning his one-on-one duels. Like he was amazing in some of those one-on-one battles. He's such a brave.
He needs to have the ball in his hand at all times.
Yeah,
at all times. Like, you know, what I felt like Salem's lost. In a way, like when Salem used to have it off half back, you'd be so confident that he was going to use the ball effectively, and now he's a wedge kicker all of a sudden rather than a punch kicker. Whereas
still played well. Come on.
Yeah, he did, but like I wouldn't say that when Salem gets the ball now, you're going, oh, this he's going to hurt the opponent every time he touches it. Whereas like Bowie hits up those central kicks where you need to have, or you either need to weight it or trajectory it in a certain way. Like he's just a very special user of the ball. But to your point, he also doesn't lose one-on-ones. He plays above his height very well, which he needs to because he's short. I think he's another luxury item that we have playing either on the wing or in defence. But yeah, Scotty, can't agree with you, brother. I just think that's not okay. Bow Wow give the man 10 games this year before you start rinsing him.
Scotty's watch list. I love it. Now, the last one, and we can wax lyrical about Track and Clary at some point soon. We have to. But Bailey Fritsch. We have to have a Bailey Fritsch discussion. Now, Toff, hold your horses. I'm going to read out something from a loyal listener. So this is from Grant. So a big shout out to Grant. He's a avid listener of the DeeBrief and often sends me some tidbits. And this is scary reading. So you ready for this, Toff? In Bailey Fritsch's last 11 games, 13 goals, 11 tackles, 9 1%ers, averaging 3.3 marks a game, and only 9 of his 37 marks have been contested. That's awful for his extremely high standards. So, in my opinion, this isn't just some small malaise. This is becoming a problem, in my opinion. It's round one. I get it. However, the fact is, Bailey's back end of 2025 was pretty insipid. 2024 was pretty insipid. And he started off in the poorest possible fashion for me. Didn't kick a goal, didn't have a goal assist. He's all about scoreboard impact, this bloke. Loves goals, loves setting them up. And he did diddly squat yesterday. And there are a couple of circumstances in the last quarter when I thought he needed to go and be a little bit tougher in the contest. And he wasn't. And it annoyed the shit out of me. And he's really starting to grind my gears because his talent is unbelievable, unbridled. He has everything in his locker to be a consistent top 10 goal kicker in the comp. I think he's got an AA in him somewhere, but he is so far away from that. And I just miss the 2021 version. I miss shades of the 2023 version that we saw. And yesterday's version is not good enough for me. And thank you to Grant, because I think he has pointed out that we actually have a problem on our hands with Bailey at the moment. And that was game 150. It was a milestone game. And he would be, no doubt, bitterly disappointed with his output. So what do you think, Toff?
Frida, for me, has always been... And I reckon you could go back to the beginning of Frida's career, and you and Benny and I don't know who it was back then, maybe Maury, were defensive of him. And I was always super critical because I felt like he just never commits defensively. So the points about his 1%ers, the points about his tackling, I've never felt like that's been part of his game. But when he's kicking goals and he's banging them over his head and he's taking speckies, you can overlook all that stuff, right? Because you see the upside. And I think now, because we've had such a consistent run of bad form, and maybe Frida is a bit of a front runner, and that's a gap and that's a weakness in his game. But we're also seeing the other side of it, which is that he's probably not playing the type of football that you'd want to see as a supporter. But I think collectively we've all had our eyes wide shut for such a long time because you accept the brilliance that be the upside, like the great kicking, the score involvements. But when that falls away, like, what value does he bring? But you can't drop him. But you do have to see, I think, a substantial improvement. I say you can't drop him with a caveat that at some point this year, let's say round 6, 7, if he's kicked 5 or 6 goals for the year as a total output, then the question has to get asked. But I think...
So you can drop him?
From his... Well, you can drop... Everyone in theory is capable of being dropped, like with extended periods of bad form. We were calling for Cozzy a couple of years ago to be dropped. Let's not forget.
Who was?
I believe there was people in this... I don't have it in me to go through and listen to all our dribble over the years, but there has been collective... There has.
No way.
We cannot drop Frida. I'm going to say...
Okay, no, so your point is you don't put the rocket up his ass yet. You wait another 6 games, and if the output's the same, then you potentially send him down to Casey.
No, he needs... Rue, Frida need a rocket because their output and their level of intent was subpar, and I would and to all those points that were made before that were all highly valid. Like, I mean, it's not a small sample. It's 12 rounds of footy of him kicking. What is it? Was it 5 or 13 goals? Can't remember.
11 games, 13 goals. Yeah,
and for a guy that's on whatever on his 5-year, 6-year contract at probably 600-700 a year, not good enough. So no. Absolutely, he needs a rocket. But what does that look like? And will our performance improve? I think yesterday's game and the way that we were playing, more importantly, at the end of last year, and the way we were bringing the ball inside 50 didn't necessarily lend itself to him having outstanding performances. Like, Frida gets on the end of him great, right? Like, when we play fast footy, he gets an opportunity to go one-on-one. I don't think our brand has looked like that for such a long time for him to excel. But, you know, all the defensive side of his game, that I feel like that's been consistently bad for his entire career. Like, tell me otherwise, but, you know, we as a fan base just accept it because you accept that the other side of the coin is brilliance offensively.
He's a very curious case for me, Frida. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with him in the next 5 to 6 weeks. The other point I just wanted to make, and let's talk about Track and Clary off the back of this, Toff, but when Matt Jefferson kicks his second goal for the game, and he was decent, took his opportunities. You come in, you kick 2 goals, that's all you could ask for. It was great getting around him in that first 15 seconds when he kicked his first snag. The MCG went berserk, all 12 of us there. But Jeffo, when he kicks that second goal, Toff, there's 15 minutes and 31 seconds left on the clock. Melbourne don't kick another goal for the rest of the game. So we're in the vicinity of the 70s, early 70s. You're on the trajectory to a score in the mid-80s and 90s, and that's more than enough to win a game of footy in those conditions. And we don't register another major. So a lot of people are talking about why wasn't Track in the middle. We didn't set up well for that kick out. And obviously that was really poor. We let them through the corridor. But I just also want to make mention, JVR, Bailey Fritsch, who we just spoke about, Cade Chandler, more the senior guys in that forward half setup in that last 15 minutes of the game. We needed a moment from one of them. We needed one moment from those 3 players. And I'm not just single-handedly, it's not just those guys. Obviously, there's other people that could have bobbed up. But I'm just really frustrated that all we needed was one more goal. I've constantly spoken about how we don't play to win games. Sometimes we're a little bit too safe. and we just try to grind and get over the line, and we're more defensive minded in those do or die situations when it's
Stay on
really
that
close.
point though. Stay on that point, 80, because it's a really good point. And if you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten it. But there were so many points in that fourth quarter where I was just screaming at the TV saying, go. Like, hit that, like, it's round one. Go for that kick-in board. Take him on. Draw your player. Handball it over the top. Because they were just, like, setting up nicely behind the ball. And it's like, the only way we're going to get through this. And we overpossessed the footy hard yesterday. And it was frustrating at times. And then for all the, like, Van Rooyen had negative 10 meters gained as a demonstration of like, I don't think I've seen that before. But we just, to your point, the directive should be play on, take risk. It's basic stuff again that I feel like we've reversed. And maybe that's why we keep talking about losing close games, because we don't have that Collingwood mentality where it's just go for it. Like, you know, play to win, not play to hold a lead. Like, it's just frustrating, incredibly frustrating.
We got safe, and we did it again, and it was annoying. And I know, again, if Aiden Johnson kicks that goal, and I went the early crow, and I was hugging Richie, and I was like, I fucking love this football club, and I thought it was a guarantee that he was going to bin it. He didn't. Goes down the other end, dagger in the hearts. But Melbourne, play to win. Don't play safe, and don't try to grind it out. It's really frustrating. It's really annoying. Christian Petracca, Clayton Oliver. The boys are back. They're loving each other. And far out, man. Are there many better sights in footy than watching Track kick a goal on the run? Like, so exciting. I said this in the post-match debrief at the Imperial last night. I was critical of him in some respects with the silence. We didn't hear from him for almost 3 weeks during that August saga period. And then, of course, comes out with a statement, which I thought was a little bit vague and a little bit dry. We didn't hear him talking about how he loves the club or any of the things that you want to hear as a supporter. So I have been a bit critical of Track. However, I've also been quite positive about the fact that he wanted change, and he certainly got change, and it does feel like a different football club again, which is great. So thanks for that, Christian. But I tried to convince myself, Toff, that I didn't want to fall in love with him again too quickly. No, it's that whole like.
Nah, you got to.
You know what I mean? It's like being in a relationship with someone that's a bit toxic, and you go back to them, and you keep breaking up, and then you go back to them. And I tried to convince myself, and I've never been in one of them, by the way. So why the fuck would I have that experience? But
You've heard about it.
I've heard about it. And I tried to convince myself, I don't want to fall in love with this guy again. And then you see him kick that goal on the run, and the Red and Blue Army are up and about, and it was awesome. And I was just like, far out. You are such a sick player to watch. You are as exciting as it gets. The way he just bustles his way through packs, out of traffic, his little pirouettes, his finishing touches. He is the full package, Toff. He is a freaking unbelievable footballer, and he could have easily have got the 3 Brownlow votes yesterday. And I'm just so happy that he's back playing footy. He's got a smile on his face, and he just looks so dogged, and he looks so determined to put his foot forward and put the rib injury behind him and take us back to where we all think we belong, and that's playing finals footy again. It was just so nice to see him out there.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, all the points you raised about how you felt about how he, or didn't communicate rather, I think that's a uniform sort of collective agreement from any Melbourne supporter that would have felt like we just want some, don't leave. But he was right. Like, the standards need to be better. They clearly needed to be better. And from the top down, I think I've spoken ad nauseum about how I have disagreed with the way that the club's been administered for a number of years. And for him to call some of those things out, I think needed to happen. Maybe didn't handle it the best way, but like ultimately I kind of agree. And then the stuff about wanting to go and play in front of big crowds, like who wouldn't? If you were sometimes a Melbourne player and you were running out to 15,000, 20,000 people in the darkest days, and even more recently 25, 30,000, we got 2 Victorian teams, like you probably go, yeah, I'll be better. but that's a rant separate to this. You know what I think? You know what I think? You know what I think of Track? Like he's our and will be go down as the greatest player to play for Melbourne.
Oh,
If he gets another premiership, I think it'll be without doubt.
wow.
Without doubt.
Wow, that's big. I like that. We'll have to do a series on the greatest Melbourne players of all time. We'll get the fans to vote in and take their word for it. The other thing, Toff, before we start to wind up here on the review show, is I like the game plan. I like the control in the game plan. It was a lot more kick mark. I thought our skills were relatively good given the circumstances and the wet. I thought it was pretty good. But there was a concerted effort to kick the ball, mark the ball, take the sting out of the game. I thought that was really clever because the only way that you can beat a side like GWS is to get control in the game. And I thought we did that well. So, again, you probably have to tip your hat to the coaching staff and the match committee because it felt like we got most of our plans right. The only thing we didn't get right was stoppage clearances. We were negative 12, which was disappointing, and they beat us up in that area. But to still lose that part of it, to be 16 plus in contested possessions, to have more of the ball, to control the flow of the game against a fast-running side like GWS, you look at it in the wash-up and you go, you know what, boys, we can work with something here. That was quite impressive in my opinion.
I can't disagree other than, and I'm sorry, but like, were you dead set before when you said that Charlie Spargo comes in over Chandler?
Yeah, we spoke about that one off air. Chandler's another one. I'm going to put him on my watch list. I'm going to do a Scotty.
No.
Yeah, I'm going to put him on my watch list.
No.
What do you mean, no? Come on.
No.
No?
No.
Okay, then what are you seeing in Chin that gives you the utmost confidence? Because for me, that was a 3 or 4 out of 10 performance from Chin. That was below average.
Yeah, for sure. But like, I think that there was probably 5 or 6 players in front of him in terms of averageness. And he had such a good year last year that he gets a few games grace to produce less than exemplary performance. But like, I think he still had whatever it was, 16 touches, and I thought his contested work was good. Yeah, but I'm just a bit shocked by the notion that you'd say that Charlie's a more dynamic footballer that should come in. Surely it's a Jack Henderson catch you later if you're going to be bringing in Spargo.
Sure, or maybe, but I look at it and I go, if Chin had 13 disposals and Charlie Spargo had 13 disposals, I can almost guarantee you that the 13 that Spargo gets will be more influential than the 13 that Chandler gets. That's where I'm at. I think Charlie Spargo is a brilliant, high-impact, low-possession getter, and Chandler is he has the 11, I think it is yesterday, kind of floats through the game, cracks him with the odd tackle here and there, but I just found his influence quite minimal, to be honest. That's all. I just think he's potentially on my watch list as a direct
What
swap.
other key small forward do we have on our list other than I wouldn't even call Sparrow like a small because he's 183, so it's probably like a medium size. But yeah, we don't. And across the AFL, like not too many can bang him from outside 50.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I think that,
and he's got a great peg. And he's when the game is coming to him, I don't know. I'm still a bit rattled by it, to be honest.
That's okay. Well, we'll just have to see again how it plays out. That's my watch list, Toff. So I've got a watch list.
Who else is on it?
Scotty's got a watch list. We've all got a watch list. I don't actually know. You've caught me on the hop, so I'll have to have a bit of a think about my watch list. Do you have one, Toff?
Is it a what list or a hit list? No, I've got a hit list. Get Howes off the park immediately.
Jesus.
Guy is no good.
Okay.
Well, hang on.
There's watch list.
You know, this is all part of armchair experts. Like,
That's good.
We have our opinions. They're like arseholes. We've all got one. So this is mine. How's go? See ya.
Okay.
Go on.
Fair enough.
And then while we're on it, because we didn't get to my valid criticism of Max. 46 hit-outs,
Come on.
and again, losing the midfield battle.
Come on, Max.
Hit-outs to advantage.
Yeah, but Max around the ground was unbelievable. Could have been the best.
Which I've never questioned.
Yeah. Okay, so purely from a ruck point of view, there's just a little blot in his copybook because we lost clearance.
Well, what was the difference in a marginal game where it is down to those small percentages?
Yep.
You even said it off air. A differential of 12 for clearances is enormous.
It is.
It's a 20-25% difference in a game. So they're getting a quarter more clearances, and we flogged them. I think I don't know what the numbers were off the top of the head for hit-outs, but we were massively ahead, and I thought Lockie Keefe effectively was just a witch's hat in the middle. So to not see, I don't know, like maybe it's not Max's fault. Maybe that's a communication issue with the midfielders not winning their one-on-ones or being at the hit zone where they need to be. But I think that's an area that we need to improve. Adrian?
It's a good point, Lloyd. It is a good point. Just on the back three talls, Jake Lever, Tom McDonald, Harrison Petty, throw a blanket across all three of them. They were great. Can't fault them. Intercept marks. They held up as well as you could have asked. Again, especially in those conditions. I love all three of them. I love Harrison Petty down back where he belongs. A few people a bit critical of a few of the mistakes he made that led to goals, and that is fair. But I think for the most part, there was a really encouraging display having him back behind the ball. Jake Lever is Jake Lever. 22 touches, 9 marks. I just fucking love him.
Poised.
I just love him. I just absolutely love him. Maisie goes out of the side and he becomes the general on the day, and he did an awesome job. And then Tom McDonald, you see Tom McDonald coming into the lineup and you're like, oh, Stephen May's out. And I said to some of the boys at the pub, I went, nah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And I think even though I was a little bit critical of that area coming into the season, and we'll have to see how it plays out, because I think in the ground ball game, we're still going to have problems with those big boys. But aerially, you cannot fault either of those three. They are so strong in the contest. They read it so well. So I think yesterday, defensively, big tick. I think midfield-wise, probably a tick, but there's certainly that blot on the copybook with stoppages and losing clearance. So I agree with you there, Toff. But for me, where we lost the game is not being clinical enough, not finding enough avenues to goal. And unfortunately, guys like Chandler, JVR and Fritsch, who are the more senior brigade, funnily enough, ahead of the ball, not hitting the scoreboard enough. And I think ultimately that's what cost us in the end. And it's going to be a real work in progress for me around how we kick big enough scores. To get in the mid-70s on a wet day is great, but if that's a dry deck coming up against a GWS team, I don't know, Toff. Like, are we capable of kicking 90, 100 points? That's my biggest question mark on this team. I think defensively we'll be okay, even though I was quite harsh in the off-season about it. So I'm a bit of a hypocrite here, but I think yesterday was an example of score source could be tricky. Do you try track 50-50? Cozzy was a massive miss, of course. And then you look at guys like Judd McVie who come back into the team, hopefully round 3, round 4. And with his speed and polish off half back, you hope that can open up more opportunities for us. Caleb Windsor floating through there now and breaking the lines and kicking goals for fun outside 50 was a big highlight. But yeah, just back to that forward line mix and trying to find as many avenues to goal as possible. Little bit worried about that, Lloyd.
Nah, get the midfield and the delivery right, and we're sweet. Like Finchy or Fritter at his best is 30, 40 goals a year good.
More.
Van Ruin should be, well, yeah, more. I don't know if we're that good, but yeah, more. And then you've got Van Ruin, who I think at baseline for me needs to kick 30 this year, like at the very least. And I think that would still be barely a pass. Guys like Jefferson, and we also need to, like, when we were explosive and great, like we were generating goals from our midfield. So that comes back to Clary to find a way to hit the scoreboard, which he did consistently when we were winning. even Viney as well needs to find a way to be more offensive. Sparrow needs to find a way. And getting that spread across our goal kickers will be important for us. So I think we'll be okay. But it comes down to what we do out of the mid. And I think Clary fit, track fit, the flexibility that we have across the Viney, Rivers, there's a plethora of options that we can utilise now to run through the midfield to not be dominant through there. So if you get that first use, there's no reason why we can't get it right when we're not suffering from what GWS did, which was just incessantly flood. Anyway, time will tell. Round 1.
Debutants.
I'm optimistic.
Can you rapid fire for me debutants and what you thought of their performances? We'll start with Aiden Johnson. Thoughts?
Competitive, like his dad kept saying, I like him, he's tough.
On your Bobby.
He loved it. And I think, he was good without necessarily setting the world on fire. So I think great if he's an excellent substitute to fill what he did, which I thought was a void for Max when he wasn't in the ruck. And I thought he did a good job. And if he can go down forward. And there was a few times where he got his hands on the ball entering the forward 50 and he probably could have clunked it. So maybe he grabs a few of those. And if he can kick 2 or 3, beauty. We'll see what happens. Lindsay speaks for itself. Who else? Henderson had his moments. Not convinced that he's at the level, but we'll wait and see. Thought he did enough to kind of give him a couple more opportunities, but I think his height will limit him. And I didn't think that there was anything special that stood out about like his speed or evasiveness in traffic was quite good, but his disposal let him down. Who else is in there? Pardon?
Sharpie.
Like him, hungry. And you want your forwards to be hungry. And I thought he was creative enough with the ball in his hand. I think he'll improve and he'll be a regular in the team for the remainder of the year. Harvey Langford, I'm just based off preseason, I think he's the one from the patch, even though what we saw from Xavier. So we didn't see anything in that quarter. You could point to a couple of things, but we didn't see much. But I'm bullish on him, no pun intended, that he will be like the pick of the litter.
Yes.
I think that's all of them.
Yeah. Well, we've spoken about Jeffo, so that's fine. So Jeffo's all good. And then the last thing, Toff, it would be remiss of us not to speak about the Irish jig. The Irish jig at the game after every goal was scored was unbelievable. People in the stands really getting behind it, especially at the start of the third quarter when we went bang, 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 which was great to see. Melbourne Football Club, maybe just do that every week because I've never seen the supporters get more around a concept before in my life. Of course, it was for Jim's game and for St. Patrick's Day, but that was fucking fun. That was fun, Melbourne.
And the green socks looked good.
Everything looked good.
We didn't get the luck of the Irish, but it was a unique, novel concept that I thought brought some energy to what could have felt like a pretty flat environment at the G on a Sunday at 3:20 with torrential rain against GWS.
Yeah, didn't get the luck of the Irish, but certainly got the rain from the Irish. So thanks for that, weather gods. Toff, we'll leave it there. News coming in just quickly. Stephen May potentially missing 2 to 4 matches. We'll be okay. We can get through. North, into the Suns, down to the Cattery, and then, of course, gather round against Essendon. It's a relatively kind fixture list when you look at it and you say... Yeah, I mean, if you go north, okay, Suns at the G, yes. Cats down there, terrifying, but then Essendon neutral territory over in Adelaide, that's not too bad. So if we can hold up and get through without Stephen, and I think Tom McDonald certainly showed that we can, I think we'll be okay. And just got to get Cozzy back in, just got to get Judd McVie back in. Even Jake Melksham might stake a claim at some point in the coming weeks. I think he's not too far off. So suddenly you've got some really good options to come in, Toff, and that's why, to finish on a really upbeat note, there are so many positives to come out of yesterday. I understand that GWS had some of their players out as well, i.e. a Jesse Hogan, who's an absolute freak, star of the competition, but that was a good performance. And for me, if it gave me anything, and this is a shout out to Benny, who texted me this, and it's not Benny Lee, it's a different Ben. You know who you are, Benny Jones. He said that performance yesterday will have given the players belief belief that they can compete against the very best, and then hopefully competing against the very best and having that belief translates into wins in the coming week. So I'm going to leave you on that note.
Where are we after Essendon? What's your prediction?
3-2.
3-2?
Yep.
Who rolls us then?
Cats. Isn't it obvious? Yeah? What do you think? 3-2 or are we 2-3? What are we? Come on. Put your balls on the line. Put them on the line. What are we?
We lose shockingly to North.
Oh.
And then we win our next 3.
What?
North is always our bogey team.
Always?
Like last year, in whatever it was, June or July, where we played
awful.
them.
It was so cold that night.
Oh.
It's crazy.
Anyway.
Okay, that's interesting. Do you know what? In a weird way, I would take that because it means you've got this stupidly morale-boosting win against Geelong down at the Cattery. But
that's right. That
feeling of being at Marvel as North get a famous victory against us next week, fuck you, Toff.
It's something to look forward to, beating Geelong down at the Cattery, let's be real.
Oh, mate, that would be unbelievable. That would really give the season some serious impetus. Mate, thank you. I've loved jumping on with you, and of course, I loved hearing the update about the grass in the backyard, and hopefully it keeps growing. So good luck in the agriculture department. And
that's it. Full credit to the grass.
Full credit to the grass, and no doubt I'll speak to you soon.
See you, mate.